Right, hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of The Cruel War from the British Grand Prix. Yes, it did look like the race was fairly done and dusted by about halfway through, but bloody hell, it kicked off in the end, didn't it? So, to kick things off, the race winner, Lewis Hamilton. Now, didn't turn up for London, the only driver not to do so, for the first ever live event of Formula 1 in the streets of London, which was, of course, disappointing to many of his fans, but even so, they'd still support him, wouldn't they? Of course they would. Personally speaking, I don't agree why he didn't do it. He just couldn't be bothered. I don't give a shit what his excuses are. He just couldn't be asked to turn up. So that's off to a tough start there. The race and qualifying itself, he qualified pole and he won the race fairly well, so you can't really argue with that. But, you know, if there's only 19 drivers going to bother to turn up at London, then I'm only going to score 19 drivers on this cruel wall. So Hamilton for this weekend is not applicable. Your fans seem to be so deluded, Hamilton, that some of my Twitter followers have been targeted by them because they supported Vettel fans, and obviously what happened to the end of Vettel. They were turned around and pointed and laughed at him. So, Hamilton, you've got a great following of fans there, mate. Really appreciate that you've managed to allow your fans to do this, and then obviously you don't bother turning up to thank them for it. So, you're not applicable, my friend. Next up was Valtteri Bottas, and what a drive. Qualified P4, 5-place grid penalty because of a gearbox, like Hamilton had in Austria, and recovered to P2. Of course he benefited from a couple of dramas at the end, but my God, what a race. What a race indeed by him. So, Valtteri Bottas, I think you did the best you could that race, mate. You really did, and I think it's going to be a perfect 10. Because that was an awesome drive, mate. Absolutely awesome. I was well impressed. You were one of my 3 drivers of the day. We'll get to the other 2 in a second. Kimi Raikkonen with P3. Now, running P2 quite successfully, no problems. Had the tyre delamination towards the end of the race with 3 laps left to go, I think it was. Had to pit, looked like it was all over. Went down to P4. Verstappen had to pit as well, so he didn't drop down to P5, thankfully, but... And then Vettel had his issues. We put him back up to P3, which was absolutely amazing and really good to see. I was well pleased that Raikkonen, although he lost out to P2 because of Bottas sneaking through, he deserved the podium this weekend, Raikkonen. He outpaced Vettel. And another solid drive by Kimi Raikkonen, who has been taking a lot of stick recently from the Ferrari team, saying that he needs to buck his ideas up. He's a bit lazy, he's a bit lethargic, he doesn't seem to push. He's proved them wrong this weekend, so Kimi Raikkonen, not a perfect 10, but I think a solid 9 points for you. You seem to be picking up, you know, you just need to be more consistent. You have good racers, then you have bad racers, and it tells on the cruel wall as well. So, Kimi Raikkonen, keep this pace up, will you? Come on. I want to see you win. I want to see you win a race. I want to see you get more pole positions. Everyone loves Kimi. Anyway, next up, Max Verstappen P4. Wasn't too bad, qualified 5th I think it was, which was the best he could get out of that car, and was running 5th pretty much the entire race. He got up to 3rd briefly, then slipped back, and then obviously benefited at the end there with Vettel's misfortune. But a solid drive by Max, got the most out of the car he could, and did a solid job, solid race weekend. Got the maximum out of the car that he could, but it was just never... I know Max is normally a really hard charger and a really hard fighter. He did really well with the battling with Vettel earlier on in the race, but there just seemed to be that little bit something missing from Max this weekend, in my personal opinion. But it could just be down to the car. So I think Max Verstappen deserves a solid 8 points this weekend. Next up, P5 was Daniel Ricciardo, his teammate, and this is my second driver of the day. Had a turbo problem in qualifying, which saw him go through into Q1 but couldn't do any better, and then he had a 5-place grid drop for whatever it was, I can't remember. It was a gearbox, wasn't it? So yeah, 5-place grid drop for another gearbox, and that of course made him start 19th, pretty much dead last. And yes, it was a good race by Daniel Ricciardo. He came through the field like nobody's business. He was carving through the cars, especially the 2 Force Indias that were stuck up behind K-Mag. He just glided through all 3 of those cars, and the Force Indias couldn't find a way past him. So that was really good to see. Ricciardo did an amazing job. He was running 7th solidly and was catching Hülkenberg for 6th. Hülkenberg had an issue, so he overtook him for 6th. And then the 2 Ferraris in front had the 2 Ferraris in front had an issue, and he benefited from Vettel's issue and got up to P5, finishing just 1 place behind his teammate after starting 19th. So, was a really, really good drive by Daniel Ricciardo. Well deserved. And I think he's probably the best driver of the season, to be honest with you. I know he's had the podiums, but he's been lucky to get the podiums, whereas this time he drove there on merit, and he only gained 1 place because of what happened to Vettel. So I think that is a perfect 10. There's some big scores coming in this weekend, definitely. P6 was Nico Hülkenberg, and again, an amazing drive by Hülkenberg. Qualified in 6th place for the race, was running as high as 5th. And then, yeah, unfortunately towards the end of the race, the team came over the radio and said, you've got a problem. It looked to be an electrical issue, which was meaning he lost power down the straights, which is why Ricciardo caught him like he did and overtook him. But you can't take anything away from Hülkenberg. He's getting the maximum out of that car, and again, he is one of my drivers of the day, along with Daniel Ricciardo and Valtteri Bottas. So, well done to Nico Hülkenberg, and you are going to get a solid 10 points on my cruel wall because you did very, very well indeed. I am well chuffed for Renault that they have got one solid driver scoring solid points now. P6 was a brilliant race. P7 was Sebastian Vettel. Oh, that got eventful, didn't it? Raikkonen had his problems with the tyre delamination. We thought, bloody hell, poor Raikkonen, but it's going to help Vettel in the championship because at least he's going to gain a couple more points. And then Vettel had the issue at Luffield where his tyre delaminated, and that was it. He had to do half a lap with a punctured tyre, had to make a pit stop, and recovered to finish P7. Discounting all of that though, of course, he was behind his teammate the entire weekend, out-qualified by Raikkonen and outpaced by Raikkonen all weekend. Couldn't seem to really get comfortable in the car. So Sebastian Vettel, based on your race up until the puncture, because that was just unfortunate. Maybe Ferrari are doing something different with camber settings and that's why both of the Ferraris suffered. Perhaps, I don't know. But Sebastian Vettel, I'm going to score you 6 points. It wasn't your best race at all this weekend. Not really. No, Raikkonen's faster than you, pal. Get your ideas booked up. Come on, Vettel. You've only 1 point in championship now because of this. Oh well. Next up was Esteban Ocon and Force India with Perez behind. So the Force India boys inseparable once again. This time Ocon beating Sergio Perez at last. Ocon and Perez, fairly quiet race. Ocon gained on Perez off the line. And that was it. They pretty much stayed together all race. Didn't overtake each other. Didn't look as though they were going to make contact, thank God. And yeah, a solid weekend. 6 points for the team. 4 for Ocon, 2 for Perez. And yeah, outscored Williams, so I suppose that's as good as it's going to get. But just a bit silly how they both got caught up behind Kevin Magnussen, who was on much older tyres in a slower car. But they couldn't get past him and lost a lot of time to the Renault of Hülkenberg. So maybe they could have benefited from the misfortunes of Vettel had they been in touch with Hülkenberg. But, you know, that's just racing. So, Esteban Ocon and Sergio Perez, you seem to be pretty much inseparable on my crawl wall. So, you can have... I'm going to give you 6 points each again. Not the best, not the worst that we've seen of Force India this year. Next up was Felipe Massa, the last point scorer in 10th in the Williams. Qualified 15th, Lance Stroll was 16th. The car was off pace again in qualifying, just like it was in Austria. But Massa managed to come through to score a point. So, well done to him. Lonely race really, didn't see much of him. Only got past Van Dorn because of Van Dorn's issue in the pit stops. We'll get to him in a second. But yeah, a solid drive by Massa, and I think that's going to be... We'll give him 7 points for that, Massa. We'll give you 7 because you have been scoring points consistently in a car that's sort of been struggling in qualifying, so you've been carving your way through the field nicely. P11 Stoffel Van Dorn, and I think this is probably the unluckiest driver of the weekend. Did a solid job to get into Q3 at Silverstone and did a fairly good race. He was running 9th for a while, lost out obviously because Ricciardo carved his way through, so he was running P10, and then he had the pit stop which was a couple of seconds slower than Massa, and that was it unfortunately. Massa slipped through and Van Dorn was 11th, and obviously the Honda engine just hasn't got the power to overtake a Mercedes powered Williams, and unfortunately missed out on his first points of the season, not through any fault of his own really. It was just a slow pit stop. So unfortunately a team error there cost McLaren a potential point, which of course would have helped in the Constructors with them being so close to Sauber for last place. But Van Dorn, solid weekend. This is what you need to do more of. Okay, he didn't score points, but he was up there. And he was racing with the Williams and the Force Indias, but just couldn't find a way past. So yeah, good effort by Van Dorn, and I'm going to score you 9 points. Solid effort there. Next up was Kevin Magnussen. Did a really long stint on the soft tyres, so was running as high as 8th at one point, holding up to 2 Force Indias, which was a fairly good effort, I suppose. Pitted, came out 13th, then Grosjean pitted ahead of him, so he ended up P12. It was just, yeah, it was alright by Haas. I wasn't expecting much more than what they did, to be honest. Maybe scraping a point, but they just didn't have it this weekend. Both the Haas cars are running different brake pads now as well, which is just a bit of a mess. So Kevin Magnussen, you didn't do too bad, but you didn't do brilliantly. Middle of the road 5 for K-Mag. Next up then was Romain Grosjean in 13th. Fairly lonely race yet again. Measling around the top 10, top 15 area. And then had a late coming together with Wehrlein in the Sauber and got pushed off the track, but managed to re-overtake him. Yeah, that was it. He got blocked in qualifying by Hamilton, and obviously Hamilton didn't receive a penalty because, once again, unfortunately, I think FIA are just favouring the championship protagonist. The championship protagonist can do what they want now, so that's getting a bit annoying. But I'm not going into it because it just causes arguments, and I just can't be arsed. So anyway, back onto the Romain Grosjean. So could have potentially got a bit better in qualifying, but didn't. Start at P10, which was a decent effort, and just slipped down in the race. Finished P13. So 4 points for Romain Grosjean there. Next up was Marcus Ericsson in the Sauber. I struggle to rate Saubers, to be honest. Ericsson finished ahead of his teammate, that's fair enough. But of course they're at the back of the grid. You know, they have been really struggling these last few races. In pretty much being the firm back marker, lining up on the back row of the grid, obviously excluding any penalties. So, Marcus Ericsson, I'm going to give you 5 points for that, because you outraced your teammate, and you finished ahead of a Toro Rosso and Williams, so there you go. Next up was Dani Kvyat. Well. Oh, the most exciting thing to happen in the race up until the punctures, and that was taking out your teammate. Wow, Dani Kvyat. He only said earlier on this week that he wanted to make sure his future in Formula 1 was secure soon, and he needs an answer as to where he's going. I think you're finding yourself the doormate and leaving, because that was bloody ridiculous. I know they always just put it down to a racing incident, but let's be honest, Toro Rosso are going to be giving her a right earful as we speak. So, yeah, Dani Kvyat not really did anything. You didn't do anything in the race after that because you crashed. So you were crap. You had floor damage. You did about 3 pit stops. It was just shit. So Dani Kvyat minus. You're on minus 100 now, so I'll score you minus 100. So you're on minus 200, Dani Kvyat. Get out. Next up was Lance Stroll. Did like what they both did at Austria in terms of both Williams sneaking through. Massa was running 10th, Stroll 12th at one point. And then I don't know what really happened. We didn't really focus on Stroll much. He just slipped down the order and ended up making an additional pit stop and dropped behind quite a few cars and finished where he finished, which was P15. So, oh, sorry, P16. So yeah, finished P16. Was a bit of a lonely race. Don't know what happened. And for that reason, he's on 0 now. He doesn't deserve any minus points for it because I just can't be bothered. 3 points, I think. I think 3 points. That's his first time he's ever been in plus points, so, you know, but it wasn't the race that we've seen the last 3 races, especially, you know, scoring points, so not sure what happened to Stroll, but could do with doing a bit better next weekend. Pascal Wehrlein was the last of the runners in 17th, massively outshone by Ericsson in terms of finishing position, and was quiet all race, so 2 points. 2 points for Pascal Wehrlein. Fernando Alonso was the first or last of the retirements. He just said no power, and that was it. Pulled into the pits and retired. Wasn't having a bad race until that point. Had the 30 place grid penalty. Did get Q1 pole though. So if Q1 had finished, he'd have been on pole, which was, if that had been the results, he would have been on pole, which is really good to see. We put a smile on everyone's face, I think, to see Alonso back up there in P1. And yeah, that was good to see. He just went out to enjoy himself. 30 place grid penalty obviously meant he was going to start last wherever he ended up finishing. So I think he did back out at the end of Q2 just so he didn't beat Van Dorn's lap, so Van Dorn could get into Q3. So that was quite noble of him. If he did do that, it looked like he did. But yeah, Alonso, I can't really score you anything other than a 5 because you broke down again and you were a bit outshone by your teammate this weekend other than the impressive Q1 performance. Next up was Carlos Sainz, taken out on lap 1 by his teammate. Can't really prove what he was capable of. He was just an unfortunate victim in Kvyat's self-destruction. So, there's a shame there. Danny Kvyat, Carlos Sainz, you'll get 5 points as well. Middle of the road 5, don't know what you're capable of. And last place was, of course, Jolie Off-Palmer. And do you know what? I have got a bit of sympathy for him this weekend, I've got to admit. He qualified 11th. He's not got the rear floor that Hulkenberg's got, which clearly proves that the car is quicker now. Still not any excuse for why he's been off the pace in terms of Hulkenberg the rest of the season, but he had a bit of an excuse this weekend, I'll give him that. Qualified 11th, he was on fresh tyres, the first car to start on new soft tyres. And he never got to prove himself. He was out on the formation lap, did not start. Great shame for Jolyon Palmer, especially in his home Grand Prix. If it would have been anywhere else, I'd have just laughed and not really given a shit, but, his own Grand Prix, he did have a few supporters there, bless him, and couldn't do anything. So, do you know what? I'm not going to write a word for him. I don't think it's fair, and I'm just going to put 0. I don't think he deserves points because of the season that he's done so far, but he certainly doesn't deserve a word on the wall just yet. So, we'll wait until Hungary to see whether he gets a big word. So yeah, and of course Giovinazzi wasn't there, so he doesn't score. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope you did enjoy it, as always. Let me know your thoughts and feedbacks. And yeah, the Team Cruel Wall will be coming in the next couple of days. I'm busy with work at the moment, so that will be coming later. So you've got that to look forward to still. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I shall see you again soon. Much love.